Hello and welcome to part 9 of the academic English course, and this is the final lesson in our 9-part series focusing on critical review writing, evaluating academic sources, and refining advanced grammatical accuracy. In this lesson, we will be focusing on writing critical reviews. A critical review is not just a summary, it's an evaluation. You will learn how to analyze academic research, identify strengths and weaknesses, and express a balanced, evidence-based judgment. This lesson, as with all the lessons in this course, is aimed at a C1 to C2 level, which means we'll focus on advanced reading, writing, and reasoning skills, including academic vocabulary and structured critique. Let's begin by exploring what makes strong critical review and how you can apply these skills in your own academic writing. Before we start, let's take a look at what you'll be able to do by the end of the lesson. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to evaluate the credibility of academic sources. This means checking whether a piece of research is reliable, trustworthy, and suitable to use in your writing. Next, we will practice how to write balanced and critical reviews. So we want to write balance, and reviews are not just a way to describe a study, but also to analyze its strengths and weaknesses. You will also apply advanced grammar structures in academic contexts. These will help you to express complex ideas more precisely. Finally, you will learn how to express evaluation using academic vocabulary so that your writing sounds formal, objective, and analytical. Let's move on to the first section. And in this section, we are looking at advanced passive structures. Passive forms are very common in academic writing, and especially in critical reviews, because they help you maintain an objective tone. Instead of focusing on the person doing the action, the passive focuses on the result or the information itself. Here are some examples. The results were interpreted using qualitative methods. It has been observed that students' performance improves with feedback. Both of these structures or these sentences avoid using personal language like we or the researchers. This sounds more formal and more suitable for academic reviews. And we can practice this. We will give you 2 sentences. Your task is to rewrite using the passive voice to make it sound more formal. After each sentence, I'll give you a model. Researchers analyze the data using 3 different methods. So try rewriting this in the passive voice. My model answer. The data were analyzed using 3 different methods. Number 2. Experts believe that social media affects students' study habits. Rewrite this in a passive structure that you could commonly use in academic writing. It is believed that social media affects students' study habits. Great work doing this. These types of passive structures are extremely useful when writing balanced reviews. And in this section, we're going to look at academic expressions for evaluating research. These phrases will help you give a balanced professional comment on the strengths and weaknesses of an article. So here's an example of what we could use. This article provides valuable insights into. The study offers a limited perspective on. The author fails to address. These expressions are commonly used in critical reviews, and they allow you to evaluate a source without being emotional or informal. And we can practice this. So write 2 evaluated sentences about a journal or article you have read. So for example, you could say about a journal discussing online learning. This article provides valuable insights into the challenges facing students in virtual classrooms. So try and use these evaluative sentences, and these are essential for writing balanced critical academic reviews. And we're going to have a little bit of focus on some reading here. We're going to look at how to evaluate the credibility of academic sources. When you read research, you shouldn't accept everything at face value. you need to check whether the source is trustworthy. We can't just use Wikipedia. So here are some things to consider. The author's expertise or their affiliation. Are they qualified? Do they work at a reputable institution? The publication date and reliability. Is the text recent? Is the information up to date? I remember when I was doing my business degree that I used correct information from a reputable source, but it was 20 years out of date and stated that IBM was the biggest producer of computers. This was no longer the case, so it meant that my information was wrong, and I based the whole argument on something that was 20 years out of date. So make sure your information is up to date. Evidence and referencing. Does the writer support their claims with high quality evidence? These factors will help you decide whether a source is strong or weak or somewhere in between. So read 2 short abstracts, try and find some information, and rate each source credibility on a scale of 1 to 5. So, for example, if the abstract said, Dr. Smith, a senior lecturer at the University of Cambridge, presents a 2023 study on bilingual literacy. The article includes a large sample size, clear methodology, and extensive referencing. How would you score this? It would likely be a 5 out of 5. The author is highly qualified, the publication is recent, and the article uses strong evidence. However, if I said a blog post from 2014 claims that technology harms students' concentration but provides no data or academic references, this would be a 1 out of 5. The source lacks expertise, is outdated, and provides no evidence. So we are going to have a look now at the structure around a critical review. A clear structure helps your writing stay focused and logical and makes it easy to follow. So most academic reviews follow this 3-part structure. An introduction to identify the article and summarize the main argument. Evaluation, discussing the strengths and weaknesses using evidence. And a conclusion, give an overall judgment of the article's quality or usefulness. If you follow these 3 steps, you will produce a balanced critical review. And you can practice this by outlining reviews for 2 short sample articles. So outline a review of a chosen article using the following structure. Next, we're going to look at relative clauses. Relative clauses can help us add extra information about a noun, making our writing clearer and more precise. Here are 2 examples. The research, which focuses on online learning, is recent. The author, whose work is widely cited, presents new perspectives. Notice how the phrases which focus on online learning and whose work is widely cited give us more detail without starting a new sentence. This is especially useful in academic writing, where clarity and being concise are very important. So, a bit of practice. Let's try to combine sentences using relative clauses. The study received international recognition. The study was published last year. How can we combine these using a relative clause? We could say the study, which was published last year, received international recognition. So doing this will allow your writing to flow more smoothly and still provide detailed information. Here we're going to look at hedging again, a key skill in academic writing. Hedging means showing caution. Instead of making a strong or absolute statement, we use language which is more balanced. So here are some examples. The findings appear to support the claim. It could be argued that the study overlooks key factors. Both sentences give the writer some distance and avoid sounding too certain. This is especially important in academic writing because research is rarely 100% definite. It's rare for it to always be 100% correct. So, bit of practice. I want you to rewrite strong sentences using hedging language. So, the study proves that online learning is better than classroom learning? What would be the model answer? How could we change this? We could say the study suggests that online learning may be more effective than classroom learning. So look at the words that have been used, the language that has been used, and try to put this into your own writing to express your ideas and to avoid overstating claims. Use this heading language, use suggests, use maybe, use appear to, use it could be argued that. Now, when we're looking and we're identifying texts, we want to be able to identify bias in these texts. So read this passage. The author claims that private education is superior because students achieve higher grades. When we read claims like this, we need to stop and ask ourselves two important questions. Is the claim supported by evidence? And what type of bias might be influencing the writer? Remember, higher grades alone don't automatically prove a type of education is superior. There may be other factors like funding, class size, resources, social economic backgrounds. If the writer ignores these factors, this claim is likely bias. So we need to ask ourselves these questions. Is the claim supported by evidence? Okay. What the bias might reflect. So what type of bias might this reflect? Identifying bias helps us to read critically and evaluate arguments more accurately. Now we are moving on to balanced evaluation. In academic writing, especially in reviews, it's important to recognize both the strengths and limitations of a study. This helps you present a fair and credible judgment. Let's look at this example on the slide. While the study's sample size is limited, its methodology provides valuable insights into learner motivation. Notice how the sentence starts. It begins with a limitation, but then highlights a strength. This structure shows balance and a nuanced evaluation. So write a balanced evaluation sentence about your current research topic. Here's my model example. Although the study presents robust and detailed data, there's the positive, the findings are difficult to generalize due to the narrow participation group, showing the limitation. This example shows how you present both sides fairly. Encourage yourself to use this structure whenever you evaluate your own academic work or other academic work. Now we're going to look at nominalisation. This means changing a verb into a noun. This is very common in academic writing because it makes sentences more formal and more objective. Let's look at some examples. The researcher decided to test. The decision to test. They improved the method. The improvement of the method. By turning the verbs into nouns, the focus moves away from the people and actions and towards the concepts and processes. This creates a more academic tone. So why don't you try this now? Rewrite verbs as nouns to increase the formality. The team analyzed the data. The analysis of the data was conducted by the team. Let's try another one. The researchers concluded that the model was effective. We could say the conclusion was that the model was effective. Nominalisation is especially useful when writing reports, reviews, or research summaries, so try to use it when you need to have a more formal tone. In academic writing, we try to avoid repeating simple verbs such as shows or finds. Instead, we want to try to be more precise with our formal academic verbs. So here are some useful alternatives. We could say demonstrates, indicates, reveals, highlights, suggests. These verbs help you express evaluation more clearly and sound more academic. So, replace shows in this sentence. The study shows a strong connection between sleep and memory. We could say the study indicates a strong connection between sleep and memory. The data shows that the learners improve faster with regular feedback. We could say the data demonstrates that learners improve faster with regular feedback. In academic settings, peer review is an important part of improving your writing. When you listen to peer feedback, your goal is not only to hear what others think, but to identify practically steps for improvement. So here are two key things to listen for. Constructive criticism. This means using specific comments that help you understand what needs to change. Main areas for improvement. These could relate to structure, clarity, evidence, grammar, academic style. When students practice peer feedback, they should try to summarize the main suggestions rather than repeat everything word for word. Summaries are an important academic skill. So listen or read peer feedback and summarize two key suggestions. So you'll hear peer feedback saying, your introduction is clear, but your evaluation section needs more evidence to support the points. So what should the student do? The student should keep the introduction as it is because it is clear. The evaluation section needs stronger evidence. So this is what the student needs to learn. When writing academic reviews, it's important to acknowledge the limitations of a study. This does not weaken your analysis. If anything, it strengthens your credibility because it shows you're evaluating research fairly and objectively. Common ways to express limitations could include monitoring or mentioning your issues, such as small sample sizes, restricted timeframes, or limitations due to access to data. So here's some examples. The study was limited by its small sample size. A lack of longitudinal, difficult word to say, longitudinal data restricts generalization. When students write their own reviews, they should include at least one or two limitations to show critical awareness. So let's practice this now. Write one sentence expressing research limitations related to methodology. We could say, the findings may be limited by the study's reliance on self-reported data. And I'd like you to write one sentence expressing a limitation related to participants. We could say the sample consists only of university students, which reduces the study's wider use. Advanced conditional forms allow us to express hypothetical and evaluate ideas in a more formal academic way. They are especially useful in critical reviews and for discussing potential outcomes, improvements, or implications. Here are two examples. If the results were replicated, they might support the theory. Were the methodology improved, findings could be generalized. Notice that the second example uses an inverted conditional structure. Were the methodology improved? This is more advanced. This is a more advanced formal alternative to if the methodology were improved. When students write reviews, these structures help them evaluate research more critically by showing what might happen under different conditions. So I'd like you to try to write two academic conditional sentences related to your field. So here's one example. This is an academic conditional sentence related to research improvement. If the sample were expanded to include diverse participants, the findings might become more representative. And here's one with an inverted conditional structure. Where additional variables controlled for, the reliability of the results could be strengthened. In academic writing, clear linking words can help you compare strengths and limitations effectively. For strengths, we often use words that highlight adverbs, or often use highlighting adverbs, such as notably, particularly, especially. These signal that a feature of the study was especially strong or important. For limitations, we typically use contrast markers, such as however, nevertheless, on the other hand. This allows you to shift the tone to a more critical perspective while keeping your writing balance. So let's practice this by writing two contrasting paragraphs. I want you to write one describing strengths and one describing limitations of a study. So my example for strengths, the study offers several notable strengths. Its mixed methods design provides a rich and detailed understanding of learner behavior, particularly for the use of interviews enhances the depth of data, allowing researchers to capture insights. Now, notice I use particularly, other strong adverbs, notably. This is a great way of making a really strong paragraph to show the strengths. Showing limitations. However, the study also presents clear limitations. On the other hand, its small sample size restricts the extent to which the findings can be generalized. Notice that I use however, nevertheless, on the other hand. So why not try writing these paragraphs for you? And this brings us to the end of part 9 and the end of our course. And here's a quick summary of what you've learned in today's lesson. We focus on developing your ability to critically evaluate academic texts by looking beyond descriptions and forming balanced, well-supported judgments. You practice using hedging language again and advanced grammatical structures to help you sound more objective. And we explored how to express the balance and objective opinions, an essential skill for writing and academic reviews. For your final task, I would like you to deliver a 1-minute spoken summary of your review. Try to use at least one hedging expression, one evaluative phrase, and one advanced grammar structure from today's lesson. If you would like more lessons and worksheets or tutoring discounts, you can scan the QR code or you can visit the link on the slide here at Simple-ESL 21. If you have signed up to our Patreon, you will also now have access to the course's workbook and our additional exercise using TED Talks and speeches to reaffirm everything we have been teaching on this course. So if you want to take your learning a step further, I would recommend signing up for the Patreon. You can get a week's free trial. In that time, you can download the PDFs, you can have a look. Hopefully you'll find something to stick around for. If not, you'll have access to that bonus workbook and to the TED Talk exercise. But hopefully you have found this advanced course useful and you can use this and apply it to your work and your academic writing. And hopefully it will lead you somewhere great, hopefully somewhere in higher education. Have a wonderful day.